Hello and welcome to all of our listeners around British Columbia and around the globe. We're glad you can join us for this webinar in the Immigrant Services Society of BC Impact project. This project is being provided with funding from the Ministry of Jobs, Tourism and Skills Training in the province of BC. Now, IMPACT stands for Immigrant Pathways to Alternative Careers in Technology. I'm Gwen Polakowski, and I will be your host for today's webinar on alternative careers in environmental and life sciences. Now, if you have questions as you watch our live webinar, then you're welcome to email us. So just send your questions to issbcimpact@gmail.com. So luckily you can see it on the screen, and we can get your questions during the webinar. Okay. During the next hour, we are fortunate to have the contributions of our guests. So on the screen, you can see Shahrir Shanaya. So he is a newcomer to Canada who works in water management, and he's a water treatment operator. And we also have two guests from the BC College of Applied Biology. One is Linda Storder. She's the registrar, and Pierre Iachetti, the executive director, is also with us. Now, along with Shahrir, let me go to the pictures. Sorry, Pierre. Along with Shahrir and Linda and Pierre, we also would like to introduce Charles Joyner, and he is the registrar with ASTT BC. So welcome, everyone.
Thank you, Gwen.
Thank you.
Yeah, great. So glad that you can all join me. Shahrir, let's start with you.
Okay.
Okay. Now, you moved to Canada in 2012, right? So
Yep.
Can you tell me about your work in your home country?
Yes. As I was graduated from biology course, I started to find a job which has a close relation to what I studied. My first position at my first job was as a lab technician in a foundry, and I was busy with doing chemical and physical tests on water and some steel product samples. This lasted almost years, and then I got a new job and started working in a water and wastewater treatment lab in a car manufacturing company. After that, I started working in the same company as a water treatment plant operator, and thereafter as a water treatment plant supervisor. And these total lasts for almost 15 years.
Now, when you came to British Columbia, what types of work were you expecting to find?
Actually, I sent an application to immigrate to Canada as a biologist. That year, 2010, it was mentioned that the job market needs 1,000 biologists. However, it was not really specified any specific position. When I came here, I thought that I can get to my last position as a water treatment plant supervisor or anything related to an environmental field. However, it was 2 weeks after arriving here that I got my first job, and it has no relation with neither of these fields. I started working as a laborer in a renovation project, and my responsibilities was organizing the job site, cleaning, and after 2 months that the project has been ended, I was doing some basic carpentry.
Okay. So when was it that you got the lead that got you to the job that you now have?
Actually, as soon as I arrived here, I registered for the English class for new migrants. 3 months after I started my English class, which was English for workplace, and as a part of that class, we were supposed to attend in an informational interview. My English instructor introduced me to a human resource advisor at Metro Vancouver company. And there I noticed that if I really want to get back to my past profession, in water industry, I need to obtain a Canadian certificate. Then she introduced me to one of their operators, and I got familiar to how should I start getting that certificate. I borrowed the necessary books from that operator to update my knowledge. Sent a complete application to EOCP, the organization which is responsible to evaluate the qualifications of operators, and also held exams. And eventually, I got the certificate in April 2014.
Okay, and we should probably just mention in here that EOCP is Environmental Operators Certification Program, and there's a whole website dedicated to their certification program.
Exactly.
Yeah, which has several levels.
Exactly.
Okay, so between that point then and finding your job that you have now in February of 2015, what else did you do to help with your job search?
Well, I took part at the Skills Connect for Immigrant program. There I got some assistance to upgrade my resume with some good tips, including adding my local experience in construction field to fill the gap in my employment history, which has been up here since I came here. And I think it was truly helpful because since then I got more positive responses from jobs that I applied for.
Okay, and can you tell me what you do now?
I work as a water treatment operator with Veolia Water Technology Canada. The location of the job is northern in a gold mine site. The job is based on 2 weeks on and 2 weeks off, fly in, fly out. I found this job really unique for myself because it gives me really great experience, Canadian experience in my past profession.
And, you know, looking at the picture of you here on the screen, you know, we can see you standing in a beautiful mountain landscape with lots of snow. And are you standing in front of a lake?
Oh, yes, exactly. This is the location of the mine, and that lake is Bruce Jack Lake, which is pretty close to the gold mine.
Yeah, and I see, you know, you're quite far up north. So it's interesting that you're getting to really see parts of Canada that are quite unusual.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Now, Sharir, I know that you need to run off to the airport to pick up some family members, so I won't keep you any longer, but I want to thank you for sharing your story with us and wish you a safe trip all the way from North Van to the airport.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate that you let me join this webinar, and I'm really sorry that I'm not able to stay with you and your guest till the end of this program.
Okay, well, we'll catch you another time.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Sharir.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye. Let me go now to Linda and Pierre, because I want to sort of ask you for some suggestions for Sharir's next steps. Now, he's continuing to build his career in Canada. So Linda and Pierre, a lot of times people, and I'm going to include myself in this group too, we are not always clear on what's biology and what's environmental work. So would you be able to clarify some of the differences?
Sure.
Thanks, Pierre.
Okay. For the college, environmental work is a really broad term. It encompasses a lot of fields of science. It encompasses a lot of different professions. So foresters do professional work, engineers do professional work. When we talk about biology, we're talking about applied biology. That's generally someone with a background in the biological sciences, so it could be zoology or botany or ecology. And you're using that education and experience in the work that you do, generally out in the field or a combination of field and office experience. So biology for us is very specific.
Okay. Now, Sharir has a biology degree. So does he have the right education and experience to apply to be a member of the College of Applied Biology?
Well, he might. There's, as you can imagine, there's a lot of different kinds of biology degrees, and when you're talking internationally, the variety increases. For the professional biologist designation, the college requires certain competencies. We would look at the content of Sharir's degree and look for specific courses that would give him the fundamental knowledge he would need to practice as a biologist in British Columbia. Courses such as physiology, statistics, taxonomy, and cell biology are required. However, we have two other categories of membership. One is the biology technologist, and for that we require a 2-year diploma in an area that would see the individual practicing applied biology. And then we have another category called the biology technician category, and for that we are looking for a certificate, which usually is a 12-month or 6-month program. Certification with the college can be granted prior to arrival in Canada, so this should give some assurance to the immigrant that jobs might be more readily available in these 3 different areas.
Okay, so which internationally trained professionals should be contacting the College of Applied Biology?
Anyone who really wants to work in the applied biology field as either a professional biologist, a technologist, or a technician should look at the college website. These are individuals who may work in aquaculture, which is a career that's practiced worldwide. Wildlife and fisheries management, or even in contaminated site work. Our college members support conservation management and planning in both urban and rural environments. So you can see that the practice of applied biology is very, very broad.
Mm-hmm.
To help the applicant determine if they meet the requirements for specifically the professional biologist category, the college has developed an online assessment tool.
Okay, and I think we have a screenshot of your assessment tool. Now, is this what we can expect to see, or what people can expect to see when they go to the self-assessment tool on your website?
Yes, and it's very user-friendly. It takes the individual through a series of questions, and which are very straightforward, and at the end it will give an assessment based on the information that the individual inputs, whether or not they may meet the requirements as a professional biologist. The college is currently developing a similar tool for the technologist category, and that should be up and running within a couple of months.
Oh, that's wonderful. Just from our experience at ISS of BC, it seems like there are a lot of people who are like Sharir, and they have biology training, but yet they've worked in kind of industrial applications. So can you explain what he and others might do to continue to build their careers, particularly if they don't have that experience working in a real kind of ecosystem setting?
Well, certainly we have members who work in water treatment plants, but they are typically plants that use a form of biology as the treatment, as the core of the treatment process, such as bacteria. So we would be, we're in order to meet the membership requirements for entry into the college, there has to be a biological aspect to the work. So if the person who finds himself in the same position as Sharir, where there is strictly an industrial component to their work, they would have to look at another organization. Perhaps Charles has some recommendations, since that appears to be the area that ASTTBC focuses on.
Okay, thanks, Linda. So, Charles, let me go over to you and ask the next question. So, Charles Joyner, our guest and registrar from the ASTTBC, how can your organization help Sharir with his career decision-making?
Well, we're very similar to the College of Applied Biology in that we're a regulator in the province. The disciplines that we regulate are more aligned to the engineering technologies, and that's a slight difference. What we have is we have two categories that would be suitable for somebody with a biological background, educational background, and that one is the biological sciences discipline. The other one is environmental. There are two opportunities there, or levels. One is technician and the other one is technologist. Our members tend to be more working in areas that are, I wouldn't use the term industrial, but perhaps municipal and applied, and doing diagnostic work on certain requirements that are typically in a lab, but support and use their biological background because of the nature of those of the work they're doing. The process for becoming a applied science technologist or technician in biological or in environmental is very, very similar as well. We have a website, we have a self-assessment mechanism, we have competencies, two sets. There's the general competencies that the majority of people would be able to achieve, and then we have the discipline-specific competencies, and people can go in and do a self-assessment. There's no charge for that, and it's only when they come to actually applying for the certification and the registration that they would have to pay an application fee. And this can be done anywhere in the world, and it can also be done at any time. So you do not have to be in Canada to begin the process. We can actually go as far as having our certification board determine if there is a gap between what you would like in the way of a certification or credential and what the educational qualifications and work experience that you have.
Okay, so just to confirm, so ASTT BC really deals a lot with people who have a kind of industrial background, much more than nature or ecosystem type work. Just confirming.
Yes, but environmental, I mean, environmental has a wide range. You can be out doing forestry work and surveys in rivers, and you know what happens if they're going to construct a road or a dam or a bridge. What's the impact on the environment? Those type of assessments are done by our environmental technologists. Then you can come down to the very basic, like removal of an oil tank from a residential property. And you have to assess whether or not there's been contamination of the soils. And again, the environmental person registered in our environmental could do that. And a person with a biological background has the fundamental foundation to be able to readily go into that type of work.
Okay, I understand. All right. So you mentioned a couple of different positions, the biological science technologist or technician, and then environmental technologist or technician. So are you seeing these as growing areas of work? And what types of opportunity do you see for people like Sharir who may qualify as a technologist or a technician?
Okay, from our Applied Science Technologist Technicians perspective, ASTTBC, we have just over 8,400 technologists and technicians. We have another category, there's 2,500 people registered in that area as well. As far as our 18 disciplines go, both biological science and environmental are growing faster. In other words, the number of applicants and the number of people certified in that area are growing slightly faster than the overall other 16 disciplines. So there has been an increase of members in the biological science technician technologist category and environmental, more so than the others.
Okay. Now, can you differentiate? We have these numbers on the screen that we talked about just before our webinar too, about the differences between the biological science and environmental science, and looking at the numbers. So can you talk a bit about those two sides of the coin?
Yes, the numbers on the screen represent the difference between 2014 and 2015, in which case we did see a slight decline. So the numbers I just mentioned before were over a 5-year period, which shows overall growth. But the decline in there is between 2014 and 2015, and part of that is that I think that some of our members are having dual membership or even going over to the College of Applied Biology because they discovered that their work is moving more in the direction of the pure applied biology rather than some of the other areas that are more diagnostic and more working for municipalities or industries or in the environmental setting.
Really interesting, Linda. You've probably seen a bit of an increase as well with your new designations for technologist and technicians. Is that right?
Yes, that's very true. The college has grown by almost 5% over the last 5 years, and we've seen a huge growth in the areas of the technician or technologist category. Are the areas we find that municipalities are hiring more and more professional biologists and technologists to conduct their work, since the scope of practice for our membership is very broad, and they feel obviously very comfortable hiring our members since they must meet strict entrance requirements. And I think we've had also an increase in international applicants, and I think this is partly due to the fact that we can award certification prior to arrival in the country, since we don't require any Canadian experience. We find that our members are also spending more time doing a wide variety of work that's really reflective of urban development and in, as Charles mentioned, contaminated site work. So these are areas of growth both for our technologists and our professional biologists.
Okay. Your organizations are very interesting, and in this regard, kind of close together. Can we draw a line between the two organizations and say, you know, which is which?
Okay, I think it's possible maybe to draw a line, but at the same time that line is a little bit fuzzy and blurred in the sense that there is overlap for sure. And I think that part of it, certainly from our applied science technologist and technicians perspective, one of the major things that we must ensure is that the people that we are certifying and registering in either biological sciences or in environmental, particularly in environmental, are extremely well versed in the Canadian codes and regulations and standards that apply in the various areas. It's really, really critical, and there's an awful lot of jurisdictions out there, such as the Fisheries Ministry, the Forestry people, the Environmental Ministry. There are so many different rules and regulations and standards. It's a complex maze that people have to comprehend the key requirements and codes when they do their work. So if there is a distinction, I guess certainly maybe it's the application of those codes and standards are very paramount for the technologist and the technician.
Glenn Peer here. As Charles said, the line is fuzzy. With all professionals, there is a degree of overlap. So with the applied biologists, we certainly overlap with foresters and agrologists. ASTT BC members may have a bit of overlap with engineers. This is recognized amongst all the professionals, but we all have our core areas of expertise. A lot of the professions are part of the Qualified Persons Initiative, or considered qualified environmental professionals. So within government, oftentimes they will specify what professionals are allowed to do what work. So when you're talking about municipal and urban, there's a riparian areas regulation, and there's only certain professions that can undertake those types of assessments. For example, college members do about 85% of those assessments. Contaminated sites, there's a roster of who can do that work. So there is overlap, but there's also a lot of specificity around which professionals can do what type of work.
Okay. Well, it's a really great thing that there are self-assessment tools available, and I think we have some websites here to kind of help out with that. So there's a technologist and technician self-assessment site for throughout Canada. It's technologyregistrationscanada.ca, and there's a direct link to ASTTBC there. And then we've talked about the College of Applied Biology self-assessment tool, which I showed you earlier. And then another kind of confusing area too is that sometimes people with biology degrees have experience working in hospitals or medical labs. And for those people, that I think is a whole additional webinar, but they can find information at the website that you can see on the screen right now, the csmls.org site. Charles, do you hear from people that it's sometimes challenging to find just the right place to go?
Yes, I mean, anybody trying to come into Canada, immigrating to Canada, is going to have an awful lot of going through the maze kind of thing and running into obstacles at times. A lot of the work could be done, though, before they arrive in preparation of getting here. Today's technology allows people anywhere in the world with access to internet and computer or even mobile devices now to check out what's available. And I think that's part of the real concern, is that people do this and they get the straight information, the accurate information. Canada is a complex country in that we have 10 provinces and 2 territories. Every province and territory has its own jurisdiction. Education is one of them. It's a provincial matter, as is regulation of these professions. And so it makes it more confusing for somebody. They not only have to think about Canada, but they have to kind of think within Canada which province they might want to go to. Technology Registrations Canada was designed and developed and launched about 3-4 years ago to try and overcome that, so that you could go to one site, you could see what the competencies were, and drill down and see whether or not you match those competencies for applying. So I believe that that's one thing that a person could do while they're still exploring what are the options available, and trying to work their way through all of this regulatory and educational requirement maze.
Okay. Let me just toss the questioning over to Linda and Pierre for a moment. We have mentioned the people who have biology degrees but who've worked in hospitals and medical fields. So Linda and Pierre, if people are confused and apply to you with those kind of work experiences, what do you normally say to them, or where do you direct them?
Well, this is very difficult because sometimes they'll get a biology degree prior to a secondary degree that's more focused on medicine. And so when they come to us, we'll ask them what their long-term goals are. And if their goals are to continue working in the medical field, I give them the address of local labs and suggest they contact them. They're very user-friendly, and or they're very people-friendly, and they probably can suggest specific courses that will help them orient themselves towards a job in a medical lab, say in Victoria. So it's I think a dialogue with the applicant first is really necessary, just to find out what their long-term goals are. If in fact they want to move that medical training back to biology, then we certainly sit down with them and give them some advice as to what, if any, courses they might be missing to apply for certification with the college.
Charles, how about ASTTBC? Is when people come with kind of medical biology experience or backgrounds, what do you have for them?
I guess there are again similarities between the two organizations, in the sense that our registration staff We look for obviously the credentials, the educational credentials, and then the work experience. And if it doesn't align with something that we can offer, we let them know that. In fact, we even refund their if they've applied. Gone as far as applying, we would even refund their application fee for them, because they may have been misled or may have gone down the wrong path, and in applying for us, if they're looking for purely a medical type of qualification. We do have one category, which is biomedical engineering, and that's pretty heavy emphasis on electronics and biosciences. It's the people that work in the hospitals and other medical facilities that test, calibrate, install, maintain, troubleshoot all of the equipment that's in the hospital these days that's electronic, primarily electronic. When you think of the heart monitors and scanners and other things, all that equipment has to be maintained and operating properly. It's the biomedical engineering technologist that does that. If the person doesn't have that type of background and is more aligned to another medical career, we would refer them to the other regulatory agencies.
Okay, thanks, Charles. All right, well, we've covered a lot of territory in the past 30 minutes in this webinar. We've heard from Sharir, and we've talked with the College of Applied Biology about what exactly is applied biology in the province of British Columbia. We've also talked with Charles from ASTTBC about technologist and technician positions and the future of work in that area. I'm just going to have a quick check and see if we have any questions so far. So at the moment, we don't have questions. However, if you are watching this webinar in its recorded version, then you are always still welcome to contact me at issbcimpact@gmail.com with your question, and I will definitely try to get an answer for you. But for now, I think we're coming just to the close of our webinar. Both Linda Pierre and Charles have all talked about pre-arrival preparation or pre-arrival things that you can do to prepare for your career in Canada. The one that we've stressed the most is taking online self-assessment tests, but some other suggestions for you too include kind of preparing for your original university documents to be sent or provided to assessment agencies. Also, getting a sense of what your English level will be in Canada, and you can find that out by taking an unofficial Canadian language benchmarks assessment at www.nclc-ael.ca. We also recommend that you practice English speaking and listening, particularly listening either through classes or by listening to Canadian English radio or podcasts. And you can even get started by writing a kind of master resume that has all of the details of your work experience and your accomplishments. And then you can revise that after you get to Canada. But one of the things we find is that people kind of forget about the specific things that they did. So if you have time before arriving in Canada, those are great things you can do to prepare. Just going to our very last slide here. This is the moment that I want to say thank you so much to all of the participants of this webinar, to Sharir Shania, who's now probably almost reached the airport. Thank you also Linda and Pierre from the College of Applied Biology, BC. Thank you so much for sharing your information about biology in the province of British Columbia. So great to have you join us.
Well, thank you for the invitation.
Great. Charles, also from ASTTBC, thanks so much for providing your input and your information. We've got websites up here for people to contact you, but just want to say thanks.
Well, thank you very much. It was a pleasure, and always great to talk to people about opportunities for registration, certification, and work in Canada. Thank you.
Great. I'd also like to thank our viewers, whether you're watching live or whether you're watching us in a recorded version. Great that you can join us, and we will have another webinar coming up on March 17th. This one is related to information and communications technology, alternative careers. So if that fits your area of interest, please join us for that. To everyone, thank you again, and have a fantastic day. From the Impact Program at ISS of BC, I'm Gwen Polakowski. Bye for today.
Thank you.